So I'm going to give you a little perspective on the new kid on the block, at least in the United States. I do have relevant disclosures, specifically as a proctor and consultant for microvention as relates to the web. So this is what I want to talk about today, the outline, and we're going to go through these things and try to give you an idea and my own personal experience. So there is another device. I've never seen it. It's listed in clinicaltrials.gov, and there's ongoing study, feasibility study in the United States on the Citadel embolization device. This is a sponsored trial by Stryker. And I can't tell you more about it because that's all I know about it, frankly. But and I think it's important because there are clearly going to be more devices beyond the web in this, but web is what is currently available to us. But the concept of intrasaccular, you saw beautiful cases of Dr. Fields, but this is a different approach. And these devices are meant to go inside the aneurysm, be a standalone treatment. We don't have the DL anymore. That was the first generation device. These are the two types of webs. You saw this in some of the other presentations. But the concept is a definitive treatment of a wide neck bifurcation aneurysm in a single step, high technical success, excuse me, and a high degree of safety, right? So I think that single step concept is very, very different for a difficult problem than what you've seen. I'm not going to belabor any data. You saw it already throughout the last couple of days, but there is good data. Dr. Hoyt showed this. The safety, I think, is remarkable. It's worth saying that, and there's some references to kind of the best available data on wide neck bifurcation aneurysms with every other kind of technique that's available. Again, in the efficacy, I think it was quite good in the clinical trial. So I'm going to kind of speed through this. You've seen the web occlusion scale, because I just want to show you kind of my own experience, where it succeeds and where it fails. So what are the challenges and limitations? We don't have a web for every size, big or small, so there are limits there. Current technology in the US, you're using at least a 21 microcatheter. You're using triaxial systems, so access can be a challenge. Morphology, you're going to see there's some challenges related to that, and accessing the aneurysm, there can be some challenges, and with device deployment and catheterization. So here's a first case. You can see this ACOM aneurysm. When you do angiography, you have an idea in your mind of how you're going to attack this aneurysm. And sometimes that's right, sometimes that's wrong. So I wasn't able to catheterize this aneurysm with a 27 microcatheter from the left A1. The lateral picture shows you that you're going to have to make this turn back, and we were never able to turn the catheter in that direction. That may become easier with some smaller microcatheters, but the case took longer than I wanted it to, but it was a successful case. The other thing I would point out is that bleb that you see at the top really isn't an issue, much like with coils. The device never went up there, and you get a good, stable, complete occlusion at a year, okay? Let's talk a little bit about morphology. You see this bleb at the neck. Is this more of a challenge, or is this the same as having a bleb at the dome of the aneurysm? You see the measurements, the device size that we choose based on those measurements. I know I'm not going to really get into measurement specifics in this talk, but you can see deployment of the web here. It's kind of being deployed up against the side of the aneurysm, so technique of deployment matters here. You wouldn't push it out. You see the result, immediate post-embo, the web is kind of hanging down as a flow divider, and over time it contracts as the clot contracts, but it contracts and actually takes care of that bleb. The sister case, this is not a success. A little bit more complex bleb at the neck, but a similar kind of aneurysm. You can see the web is pulled down and corked at the neck, just like in the other case, but at 6 months, although it looks good in the immediate post-embolization, at 6 months you have that remnant, and you have to decide what to do with it. She was young, pretty irregular. We decided to retreat, and you can retreat with stents and coils. You can clip these aneurysms. This is not a perfect result. I'm anxious to see what this looks like when she comes back. This was done safely. This case is meant to highlight some of the challenges with sometimes catheterizing aneurysms with a 21 microcatheter. This was the last case I did in the Webbit study, and I don't think I could have done it with a 27 or 33 microcatheter. It required shaping to get the microcatheter into the aneurysm. You can see the measurements, the size device we choose. And this video is instructive because you can see that once the device is open and what we call flowered, it's very safe to manipulate in the aneurysm. It's also a braided device, so you have to manipulate it to open it. I'm pulling back the microcatheter, getting it to open. As I'm doing that, it's coming off of the dome. So then we're going to have to shove it back to the dome. So these angulated aneurysms are a little more challenging to get the device placed properly. It's open again, but again on the lateral you see it's kind of folded over in a comma shape. Again, we're going to pull back and we kind of repeat this manipulation of the device until it's sitting where we want it to. And you're going to see now it's going to be pushed all the way to the dome. You can see on that lateral oblique that the distal marker gets all the way to the dome and it's dimpled in so it's not in the bifurcation. And you get a very nice durable result, but it takes some manipulation, and this is, I think, a more challenging case. So I think I have about 30 more seconds. So sometimes you place a web and you hope it's going to stay in a certain configuration. In this one, as soon as it was detached, it kept rotating in the direction you would expect it to rotate, and required a stent that really fit within the way the aneurysm is oriented, so it ended up needing a stent to protect the left PCA, and that was kind of anticipated. So sometimes you either bail out in this manner, or at least plan for something like this. The last case, quickly, is what I would call a non-traditional bifurcation, and I think where this technology can go. This is a pica aneurysm that you guys can all see that. It's truly a bifurcation. It's just at a bifurcation of the V4 and the pica, and you can do this from the wrist with a Sophia or your intermediate catheter of choice without a triaxial system. You can get a good result. So in conclusion, I think this is, with evidence, the safest and most efficacious treatment we have right now for wide neck bifurcation aneurysms. It's not for every wide neck bifurcation aneurysm, but its clinical application, I think, will continue to increase as the technology evolves and users gain experience. Thank you.
Thank you.